the Art Gallery of New South Wales. This is our very first Periscope broadcast, so we're all new to this, but welcome. Today we're going to be having a preview of the Archibald Prize 2015. My name's Anne Ryan and I was the curator this year for the Archibald, and so my job was to get everything on the walls, but there's a longer story. The exhibition is judged over one weekend by our Board of Trustees. And on the Monday morning, I'm given a whole pile of works that I have to make work in this exhibition space. So what we're going to do is take a little tour. Now you might notice that we're using landscape mode, so apologies if you're on a desktop. But if you're using your phone, just turn it to the side, so you'll be able to see more pictures and less of me, which is what it's all about. So this is the first room of the exhibition. And this room's a really diverse room. It's got all sorts of works in it. But the one I wanted to talk to you today about is this one here. It's by Bruno Jean Grasswell, and it's a portrait of an Australian actor, Michael Caton. Now you know Michael Caton if you've ever seen that fantastic, iconic film, The Castle. He's the quintessential Aussie bloke, if you like. This work won the Packing Room Prize, and that's a little lead-up prize we have to the Archibald Prize, and it's where our packers, who are the guys that unpack every single work as it comes into the building to be judged, they see everything and they have an opinion, and so every year we give them the chance to vote on their favourite, and this was it, Bruno Jean Grasswell's Michael Caton. It was pretty interesting the other day to see Michael Caton standing next to his portrait. Of course his head was normal size, and here we've got a very big head. But in fact, seeing them together, you started to understand why the artist painted the way he did, and it's a pretty reasonably good likeness, I think. So we'll walk through the space. There are so many pictures here, I can't even talk to you, but quite frankly, you should be coming in to see this because it's worth seeing everything in the flesh. We'll go into this next room and I'll show you a very interesting work by an artist called Paul Ryan. So this is the second room of the Archibald Prize. There's 4 rooms, number 2. This room's got a few works that are a little bit edgier. Some of the younger artists entering the prize, artists who are interested in things that are a little bit more, I don't know, a contemporary take on what portraiture can be. This work here is a really interesting one by Paul Ryan. He's a painter from Wollongong, which is the city south of Sydney, and it's a work, as you can see, on multiple objects. Some of these are junk shop finds, a couple of them are little oil paintings that the artist made when he was a lot younger, and some of them are reproductions. There's even a tapestry over here, and the portrait is called 13 Noahs. Noah being Noah Taylor, an Australian actor of some renown, and also a painter actually. Noah is a painter as well as an actor. This is a work which is one work, but it's got multiple parts to it, which I actually think is really, really appropriate when you're doing a picture of an actor, because an actor, of course, is required to present all different faces to the world when they're playing a role. So we've got him from all different perspectives. His face has been elongated, distorted, changed around, and I think it's a really, fun work because he's also used some unconventional things here. We've got ping pong bats. A really great portrait of Noah Taylor that I think captures a lot about him as a person, but also as him as an actor. We're going to go through here now into the central gallery. This is the biggest space in the whole art gallery, and to be honest with you, one of the things that I have to think about is logistics and practicalities of fitting all these works in. So big works do really well in here. So I've put some big works, and of course this year one of the big works happened to be the winning portrait. So come over here and we'll have a look at that. This is the winning painting for the 2015 Archibald Prize. This is Nigel Milson's portrait of Charles Water Street. The title, in fact, is called Judo House Part 6, in brackets, The White Bird. And I think the white bird is a nice little touch because it actually makes you think beyond what this image is and think about it in a more abstract way, if you like. Charles Water Street is a well-known Sydney barrister. He's also a writer, and he's the inspiration for the lead character in the ABC series Rake, which was loosely based on his very colourful and interesting life. Nigel Milson has actually known Charles Water Street since he was a small boy. They grew up in the same town south in southern New South Wales. And Charlie's parents owned the pub, and Nigel's dad used to sell fish in the pub. So they've known each other for a long time. More recently, Mr. Waterstreet has represented Nigel Wilson in a legal case where he defended him against criminal charges. So this painting is a story about a long connection, but also a very intense relationship that was forged in a very intense place and has developed to where it is today. The painting has a very imposing presence in the space. It's very dark around, and so the form of the artist's head with the barrister's robes and his hands emerge out of the dark with this very white, bright palette, as if a bright light's shining on it. And the interesting thing about this work is the face, of course, but also the hands. The artist has focused very much on the hands as an expressive element of the painting. The hands tell you just as much as the face does, in my opinion. It's a very masterful portrait and a very worthy winner. But I don't want to go past the work which was the highly commended work for this year's prize, which is this picture just next door by Mitch Cairns. Mitch Cairns is a younger Sydney painter, and he's painted a portrait of Peter Powditch, who is a senior Australian artist. Came to prominence in the 1960s with his very strongly pop aesthetic. And this is a painting by a younger artist in homage to an older revered figure in the art world, an older colleague, if you like. And again, if you look, you can see that the artist is focusing just as much on the sitter's stance and his hands, and they're also very expressive. You can see him holding a cigarette in his right hand with his other hand supporting him on the table. It's a rather lovely portrait by a younger man in homage of an older man. Perhaps he's following in his footsteps, and a worthy, highly commended work. Let's go into the last room. The last room is a smaller room, it's a darker room, and it's got a bit more of a somber or serious feel, I think. Some of the works have a darker palette, and some of the works deal with, you know, the end of life, if you like. We've got works by artists using looking at more serious aspects of life, if you like, I suppose. And one work I wanted you to see is this one here, which is Peter Church's portrait of his mother, Betty Churcher, former director of the National Gallery of Australia. Peter Churcher is the painter, and he's been painting his mother ever since he was a small boy. It was a regular thing that they used to do. And this very poignant work is the last portrait that they painted. Betty Churcher died earlier this year in her 80s, and this was a portrait painted while she was ill at home shortly before she died. He told a lovely story about how he was painting what must have been a very emotionally charged time for him, for both of them. And she, of course, was looking at what he was doing and commenting on it, and at one point said, "If you change that mouth, I'll kill you." So she, even towards the end, pursued her own, had a very strong vision of excellence in art, and she was guiding her son all the way through this last, possibly very difficult portrait. So you can see in the exhibition we've got everything from the loud and declarative right through to the poignant, the subtle, the quiet and the somber. And that's probably reflective of life, and that's what the Archibald's all about. The Archibald is about people, it's about us, it's about the whole of life and the whole of experience. So I hope it gives you some idea. We may not have any questions, I'm not sure, but let's walk through. We'll go further over here. One last picture, again, a figure from the art world very much loved, who recently died, William Wright, a portrait by John Beard, a former winner of the Archibald Prize. William Wright was an artist and an arts administrator, and John Beard has gone over his normally almost photographic, very still black and white sort of imagery with these three bright colours, and that's referring to Bill Wright's own art and his own love of colour and his own love of art. So he's bringing that forward so that when we're remembering Bill, we remember the kind of man he was and the kind of things that interested him. If we go over here, one last one which I think people might find interesting, and this is really worth coming in to have a look at in the flesh. This is a work by Marcus Wills, also a winner of the Archibald Prize. And it's a work called El Cabaceo, or El Cabaseo, and it's a box. You can see how it's got these little doors that open, and that's referring, of course, to portable altars or devotional artworks from the Renaissance period, where people used to carry around these things on their travels, and you could open it up and have your image of the Christ child and the Madonna or the crucifixion, and you could pray and fulfill your religious obligations. This is a marriage portrait. It was commissioned by the couple here, who are a couple of doctors who got married. This is them in their wedding clothes, and if you look very closely here, and it might be hard to see, but to the left of the lady in red you can see a figure sitting at a table, and that's actually a self-portrait by the artist. So a nice little touch, and something that artists have done for a long time. I think there's a whole little subgenre of research in there about artists' sneaky self-portraits in their pictures. And if you go around the sides of these works and imagine that with the doors closed, you can see images of the subjects naked. So you can see them dressed in their wedding clothes in the front and then naked on the outside. So it's a lovely little object, not only for what's painted on it, but an object in itself, rather a lovely little thing. So I think that's probably it for today's premiere Periscope broadcast for the Art Gallery of New South Wales. The exhibition opens tomorrow, that's the 18th, the Saturday, and come on down because it's well worth seeing.